The rate of learning internally must match the rate of change externally. And if it doesn't, then the organization gets left behind. We have the potential to change lives.
Mhm.
That's what learning does.
Okay, so Keith, it is absolutely awesome to have you here. I have been looking forward to this chat. We have been in contact for a while, and you've definitely helped me through my career. So I'm just so happy to have you on as a guest. Introduce yourself, give your quick elevator pitch.
Yeah, my pleasure. Looks like we both got the memo of black on black today. So I'm feeling slim in my black. So I'm Dr. Keith Keating, Chief Learning and Development Officer for BDO, also academic advisor for the University of Pennsylvania's Chief Learning Officer program, and author of The Trusted Learning Advisor. And it's a pleasure to be here with you. I appreciate the invitation. It's great watching your career continue to grow, and I love that you're creating this space for others.
Yes, absolutely. That's I say my love language is community, so it's such a honor to do that. Okay, so Keith, as we start, we go back in time to your very first working experience. Tell me all about that.
I was 13 and I was living in Korea. I was in the entertainment industry at the time. And so it was simultaneously, I was doing books on cassette, English on cassette, and I was on a Korean soap opera.
Oh, we have to dig deeper into that. This is brand new information to me. So tell me more about that.
It wasn't that I had any talent per se, it was being an outsider. I had blonde hair at the time. There's really nothing to tell. I think I got it because of my hair color, my eye color. Had a few lines. I would say the English on cassette was a little more interesting. Bird,
Mm.
dog, cat. You may recognize me from those three words.
Okay, okay. So, all right, just you got to fill me in. So you were teaching on cassettes or helping?
It was, imagine before the internet, oh, it's hard to do now. If you wanted to learn a foreign language, you would put the cassette in and you would hear the first word in Korean and then the second word in English. And so I
Mm.
was the English version of
Okay.
English on cassette.
Okay, okay. Oh wow, that's amazing. And yes, I actually do remember the days without internet where I had to fight with my brother and plug it in and hear that awful tune. So yes, I do remember those days. But wow, that's so fascinating. And why were you living in Korea? What took you there?
My father was in the military, so
Okay.
in the U.S. Army, and there was an army base there.
Mm,
And
okay.
what's interesting is it just reminded me at that same time period, my other job, I had a lot of jobs at 13, was also teaching English. And my mother would actually teach proper English to Korean mothers, and then they would have children and they would bring their children along, and I would teach their children English. And it just consisted of us playing Nintendo together and talking about what we were doing.
Oh, that is awesome. What Nintendo games did you play?
It's Mario Brothers
Oh
and
yeah, one
the
of the best.
Simpsons.
Oh, nice, nice. Also played those. That's very cool. Okay, so early childhood, you start working at a very young age, and I'm assuming you moved around quite a bit with your father. Okay,
Mhm.
so then where did you go from there? So from Korea, what was next in your life?
We went to Hawaii for a year and then went to Florida. And so by that time, I'm 15 or so. I ended up struggling significantly with high school because my education system was so different because of the different countries and different levels and such. And
Mhm.
by the time I reached Florida, I would have one teacher who would tell my parents I'm above average and I should skip a grade. And then we would go next door, and the teacher would tell my parents that I have a learning disability and I should be held back. So take that coupled with being bullied. I was always bullied in every school because I was always the new kid. Eventually, I had just reached my apex and I made the decision to drop out of high school. So I am a high school dropout, barely have a 10th grade education. I think I had just started, I was 2 or 3 weeks into 10th grade and made the decision. And I remember the teachers and my father telling me, you'll never amount to anything. You will be destined to a life of fast food. And so I did exactly what they said, and I got a job in fast food. And I worked at Wendy's for a couple of years. And I just knew there was something else I wanted to be during that time, but I had no idea what it was. No one had ever told me you have skills, or I never had any career pathing conversations. It
Mm.
was more of just a survival mode because of moving around all the time and some other family trauma. It was just surviving. So got the job at Wendy's, but there was just this, I knew there was something else. I just didn't know what it was. And
Mm.
one day I was looking in the newspaper because I'm old enough that once upon a time you had to look in the newspaper for jobs, and
Yeah.
only on Sundays. Sunday was the good jobs.
Yes.
And there was an ad for a Microsoft Office trainer. And I remember seeing the ad thinking, how hard could that be? I know how to use Microsoft Office, and I've never had any good teachers, so I can do this. And I went to the job interview, and I was horrible because they asked me to do a test teach. I had no idea what a test teach was. And so they said, well, we want you to teach for 5 minutes how you use Microsoft Word. And I was so nervous that I decided to cough. Coughing was a mechanism that allowed me to think about what I was trying to say and buy myself some time. So I told them I was very sick, but I really wanted the interview. And so I would cough and cough and cough. And she finally interrupted me about 3 minutes in. She says, it sounds like you're really not well. Go home and we'll give you a call if we decide we want you to come back. And I left and I thought, well, I certainly didn't get that job. And they called me a week later to offer me the job. So I'm 17 years old and I've been hired by a company called Comp USA, which is now bankrupt, long defunct, hopefully not because of me. It's like a Best Buy competitor. And once upon a time, you would go to these stores to learn computers. Well, they had just gotten a contract with the US government for Microsoft Office 2000. And so my job was to travel around the country teaching Social Security Administration offices how to use Microsoft Office 2000. And so I walk into my first classroom and I'm 17. I look like their child. They look like my parents. No idea what I was doing. And I remember I broke down and cried in the first class and kind of ran out, had a little sob, came back in, finished the class. And I remember going back that night thinking, okay, you've got to really learn how to do this and you have to invest the time. And so the next day I got 0.001% better. And then the next day, 0.001% better. And then eventually, about 6 or 7 months in, I saw the light go off or go on in somebody's eyes. And I remember for the first time feeling like I had value. There was something I could contribute that was meaningful to somebody else. And it felt really, really good. Fast forward when I had my annual review with my manager. I'm not bad by this point. I'm better than I was. And I asked her, why did you hire me? I had to have been terrible. And she said, you were terrible, but you were the only person that had car insurance and no criminal record. And both of those were a requirement to be a contractor for the government. So that's how I got into this illustrious career was I had no criminal record and car insurance.
Wow. That's an incredible story. Definitely something new I've learned about you. So, wow, what got you through? So, I mean, what got you back into that classroom? You leave to go cry, which is, a big deal. What got you back? Like, where did that come from?
Tenacity. And it's funny, I had no idea what that word meant until one of the other careers that I was trying to do was to become a singer. And I would hire these really expensive vocal coaches thinking that I could buy my way into a voice. And eventually, this famous vocal coach said, you have tenacity. And I said, I don't know what that means. And she said, it means you should stop paying me to be here because you're not going to get a voice, but you really keep trying. And that's what got me back into the classroom was I'd never give up. I continuously keep trying, and I may need to take a break and have a cry and have a pause, but then dust yourself off and get back in there and figure out how to get through it.
Yeah, I think tenacity is so underrated. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so this job, did you, because obviously you're Dr. Keith, tell us that story from high school dropouts to becoming a doctor.
Gosh, there's a long, long journey there. I'll give you the short version. I was in the field of L&D, but I had no idea what L&D was. I was just a trainer. That was it. I had no formal education. I didn't know how to teach, but I hadn't learned how to learn in school. And what this first job forced me to do was to learn how to learn, because my job was to teach other people.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what I was teaching, so I first had to figure out, how do I teach myself? And I realized that I could break down these potentially complex topics into digestible bites that worked for me. I could synthesize and I could present it back in a way that other people understood. And so I was teaching myself how to learn. And I would constantly push myself outside of my comfort zone by always saying yes. And one of the examples was, I would have to teach a new class probably every 3 or 4 weeks. And
Mm-hmm.
so for the first year or so, I focused on the Microsoft Office piece. And then they realized, oh, this person actually has a little bit of skill set here. And at the time, HTML had just started. And so all of a sudden we needed an HTML trainer. And so I was like, oh, I'll do that. And then Dreamweaver came next. I was like, okay, I'll learn Dreamweaver. And then Adobe came. And then it was all, it was the dot-com era. And so you turned every corner and there's always something new to learn. And so I just absorbed and consumed everything that I could and then taught it back. And that just really catapulted my career. And there's ebbs and flows. I left for a little while. I was going to move to LA and become a famous actor. That didn't work out. Ended up on a floor in New York for 2 years to try and find the next job. And there's lots of jobs along the way. And then at one point, I was a contractor for a company. And while I was a contractor, I had hired another company to do some work for us. And when my contract ended with company A, I called up company B and said, hey, I hired you to work for me. I need a job. So now you should hire me. And luckily they did. And I spent about 10 years with GP Strategies, really learning how to be an L&D practitioner. And during the course of the 15 years in between or so, I had finished my bachelor's degree, I had finished a master's degree. And one of the tricks was always using the tuition reimbursement and tuition assistance program from companies, because I didn't want to pay and didn't have the money to pay for it myself. And so it took me quite a long time. And luckily, the education system continued to evolve during that time period. And it became a lot easier because I didn't have that high school education. So I can't do math. I don't know algebra. I don't know trigonometry. And computer sciences, once upon a time, required all of that. Luckily, it evolved and eventually didn't. So I accumulated these degrees. And then when I was at GP, my CEO, Adam Stedham, was in the doctoral program at Penn. And I remember him calling me up one day and saying, you really need to do this program. And at that point, I had not bought into this idea of lifelong learning. I was a practitioner that was like, yeah, learning's for other people. I'm here to help you learn. I don't need to learn. I'm good. And year after year, it was probably 2 years or so, he just kept hammering this in. You have to invest in yourself. You have to keep learning. And finally, it wore me down. And I said, you know what? Fine, I'll apply, but there's no way I'm going to get in. I just don't have that pedigree and I don't have the education. And by the way, I had forgotten actually that I was a high school dropout because I had lied for so many years. And I applied and I got in. And I remember reading that acceptance letter and just bawling and bawling and bawling because this wasn't my dream. And it wasn't my dream because I was too afraid to even dream that it was possible. That's not for me. That's for other people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have money. I'm not educated. And yet here I was being accepted into something that I just never thought possible. So I do the program and or start the program. And it was about, I don't know, 5 or 6 months into the program, I was talking to somebody there and I had forgotten my lie. and it sort of blurted out that I'm a high school dropout. And then it was like everything just sort of became so heavy that my story now is moving from high school dropout to doctor of education from an Ivy League university, which still sounds very foreign, like I'm talking about somebody else. So luckily, I had somebody who believed in me when I didn't even think it would be possible and
Mhm.
encouraged me. And now it's my passion to do that for others.
Mm. Yeah, let's dig into that mentor of yours. What made them push you? What made you believe to follow them? I think the power of mentors is so critical. And I always say, I have been a person that's independent. I'm going to figure it out myself. And now having, my own business and later in my career, I will not go a day without a mentor, coach. So what was that person to you and how did they help you?
I'm very transparent and very honest, so I'm not going to give you the Instagram answer. I only did it to shut him up. It wasn't, I did not want this at all. It was not my vision. It was not my journey. I didn't have the money for it. I disliked higher education systems. And I felt that, look, I've been in my career for, at that point, 18 years. What could I possibly learn from this?
Mhm.
I'm good. And as I said, 2 years he wore me down. And I thought, okay, well, fine, I'll write the Excel, I'll do the admissions, and I'll play this game, and then I'll be able to say, hey, look, see, I didn't get in. I told you.
Mhm.
So it wasn't because he was mentoring me. It was just because he wore me down.
Okay, that's great. And sometimes we need that too, just that person, I suppose. Do you think he saw potential in you that you didn't
I
see?
do. Oh yes, yeah. He
Okay.
definitely he's given me opportunities, great opportunities. I wouldn't have the career I have without him creating those opportunities for me.
Are there any other mentors throughout your career that have helped shape who you are? Or are you always the mentor with mentees and you're not the other way around?
I will say I've my leadership style and my growth in my journey has been based on doing the opposite of what I see. I've never had someone that I would say I looked up to from a mentor perspective to coach me and guide me. It's more about having bad leaders and bad managers and being conscious and thinking I never want somebody else to feel what I feel. So I need to make sure that I don't do what they're doing. And it's switching from that victim mentality of which I had for a while of, oh, it's awful. I have the worst manager ever. To this is a learning opportunity because I know now what not to do.
Mhm.
I know the 100 things not to do. So that leaves me now with these maybe 10 things to be doing. Or here's what I wish that person would have done for me. So I need to make sure I'm doing that for other people moving forward. And to your second part of your question, I would not have considered myself a mentor to anybody until maybe about 5 years ago, just because I wasn't ready and it was still more my growth phase and my survival phase. I will perpetually be in the growth phase, but I just didn't feel that it was my place to mentor someone else because I was still trying to get through it. And I
Mm.
feel like now I've gotten through it. I have the career that I didn't even know I wanted. I'm at such a privileged place that now I want to throw the rope down and reveal all the secrets and just help everybody else
Mm.
get up who wants to get up. You have to
Mm.
want it. But
Yeah. Yeah. And, I love that. And I think we've only been connected for that time. So I suppose I only know that side of you because you definitely come across as a mentor for me. So just putting that
thank you.
out there. Okay, so something just in the back of my mind, and now we're doing a complete, 180. You said you moved to California to be an actor. You got to just tell me at least one story there.
Gosh. So I was in New York. I was working at McKinsey and I was doing some off-Broadway stuff on the side. And I got a role on the TV show Frasier. And it was a bit part, but it was enough to where the casting agent said, you should move out there. We'll help you line some other things up. And did. And I thought, that's it. This is, I'm going to be done. I move out there. I am actually a recovering dancer. So I was a backup dancer for some well-known artists. And so I sort of pivoted from the acting piece because it wasn't working out at all to dancing and had some success there for a couple of years, and then had a hernia, broken leg, broken foot.
Mm.
Yeah, there's more things. And so then my body was like, okay, nope, that career is over. And so then I was like, okay, what's next? So I tried to go to law school, and I could not pass the first law school entrance exam. And then I was like, well, I guess I'll go back to L&D.
Wow. So multifaceted. There's just so much to your story. Law school. Okay, back to L&D. Right. So you've pretty much done L&D almost your whole career, right? With the pivots and twists and turns. Um, okay. So take me to today. What do you do today? Where has this whole like very colorful background that's led you to today? Tell me about your career now, who you are as a person.
Today I get to do everything that I love. I shared with you before we started that I love my job. I've never been able to say it before. It's funny, I'm technically on vacation, but I'm working, and my team will always say, "Hey, you're supposed to be on vacation. Why are you working?" And my answer is because I love what I do. It doesn't feel like work to me. I don't mind working 10, 12 hours, and that's not because the job requires it. It's because I want to do it. I just love it. So today I am an L&D practitioner. I can say that I am a practitioner now because I truly understand what our field is and what we need to do to garner the respect that we ask for, but don't often follow up with in terms of our skills. For example, I was in the industry for 15 years before I even heard the word learning science. I had no idea what it was. And it took a long time to even figure it out. And now that I do know what it is, now I feel like now I'm a practitioner. Now I'm doing good. Now I can help people learn, because for many years I wasn't doing the learner's service. I was actually doing a disservice because we were making it much harder for them from a cognitive perspective and not helping them actually learn. So today I am with an amazing organization that respects our field and has given me this sandbox, blank slate environment to just come in and do what I've learned how to do, which is amazing. And I would say on top of that, I'm constantly learning. It's about being a learn it all, not being a know it all, because there's no way that we will ever know it all.
Mhm.
That just doesn't exist. And so my passion in life today exists of helping elevate the talent in BDO to being top tier, while also spending additional time focusing on our industry like you are, to help elevate our industry, because we have the potential to change lives. That's what learning does. And if you think about after your formative education years, there's this idea of, oh, I'm done with learning. Like, whew, school's over, that's it. We are the ones that are actively encouraging talent to continuously learn beyond that. And if you think about change, change is happening at an exponential rate around us, it's happening faster than ever. In order for us as talent, as employees, and in order for the organization to survive, the rate of learning internally must match the rate of change externally. And if it doesn't, then the organization gets left behind. And there's so much value, there's so much opportunity for us, but often practitioners don't know how to tap into it
Mhm.
and don't know how to treat it with respect and haven't invested the time and it takes time to build up these skill sets and to constantly building the skill sets to be trusted learning advisors. And so my second passion is about helping to elevate our industry to evolve from being order takers to being trusted learning advisors.
This is a soapbox I will spend my whole life on. Tell me what it feels, because I have experienced both as well. So I've experienced companies where L&D was, we didn't have to fight for seats at the table. We were demanded to be at the table. That, totally respected. We came in at the beginning of every project. We partnered with the business. It was an absolute no-brainer. And then I've been in companies where, they're like, put this presentation together. And I'm thinking, I get paid way too much just to put a presentation together. So in your experience, how does each of those environments feel? Because when you say from order taker to trusted advisor, sometimes people have never actually experienced that advisor, even environment where they could become that person. So just what are the two environments? How have you experienced those?
An order taker to me, when I'm treated like that or I'm in that environment, feels like there's a weight on my chest and I can't breathe. And it's anxiety driven, it's suffocating, and it feels like somebody else is controlling our strings and telling us what to do, what to say, how to react. It feels like you don't have a voice. And I grew up like that, and it's suffocating. The opposite end of the spectrum is feeling valued, feeling like you're contributing to the bigger picture, feeling like you matter, feeling like you have a voice, like you're respected, sought after, trusted, listened to, all basic human characteristics that I think that we strive for. I will say I don't I, I love BDO, I love my job, but I'm not at this end of the spectrum. It's not like everything is always sunshine and roses and you're treated like a trusted learning advisor every day. What we have in that environment is I see the willingness to allow us to demonstrate how we can move from here because we were historically here. We want to get to here, but this is a journey. It's not a destination. You never get over here and then say, okay, great, I'm done. Because every time you meet a new stakeholder, every time you have a new project, every time you start a new company, you come back to zero and you have to earn your way back over here. And it is a pendulum that will go back and forth. I'll have days where I'm treated in this way, and then I'll have other days where somebody's still coming and giving me an order. But for me, it's about seeing the possibility and knowing that they're open and willing to give us the space to do the good work to show why we should be treated and respected and our trusted learning advisors.
What led you to write your book?
The exhaustion of being burnt out and feeling like I have at that point I started writing, I had 15, 17 years of experience, but nobody was respecting that. And at General Motors, we had this beautiful sandbox similar to BDO in the sense of when I started there, we were order takers and our stakeholders gave us an NPS score of 33 and said, we don't trust you. We don't think you're innovative and you're an order taker. And they were completely right. And so the book was born out of the journey at General Motors, and everything that's in there is what I have applied there or at other parts in my career or through conversations with other practitioners in the field. And so I felt like we started to unlock something beautiful at GM, and I wanted to share that with others to help them unlock it because I know what it feels like to feel devalued and suffocated. And when it happens so much, you just shut down and
Mhm.
you eventually go to work and work becomes work and it becomes miserable and you're unhappy. And if I can help others in our industry unlock that, which leads them to be able to unlocking the human potential and the organization, it's a win-win for all of
Mhm.
us.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yes. You and I sing from the same hymn book here for sure. One question that I have in the back of my mind is what is something that we're not talking enough about when it comes to careers, and it can be careers in general or careers in L&D. What is something we need to start speaking about more?
I can't say that this is not talked about, but I don't see it from my perspective. Take control over your damn career. Do not wait for an organization to create some sort of chart, organizational path, any of that. You own your career. It's not up to someone else to develop that for you. Find people that you respect, admire. Find people whose careers you want.
Mhm.
Honestly, there this morning I was on LinkedIn and there was somebody that got a new job and I went to celebrate them and I looked at their career path and I thought, oh, I want that. In fact, I remember what started me from the trajectory of here to here was a woman named Brittany Cole at GP Strategies. She had written an article that was published at ATD, and the article was, I think, called Squirrel, the Learning Technology Syndrome. And everyone was talking about that article. And I remember being so jealous in a good way and envious. And then the light went on. It was like, I want that. And so I picked up the phone, I found her number, and I called her and I said, you don't know me, but I want what you have. How did you publish that? How did you learn that? How did you get to where you are? Help me. And so the short answer is own your career. Find the people that you want to be like or that you want to be and figure out what they've done and then translate that into your own story because it's not going to be an exact
Mhm.
lift and shift, but take control.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's do full. Yes.
I would say one more piece.
Yes. Yes.
Always plan for your next step. Meaning, I think people will like, oh, I want to be a manager. You get to that manager and then you get complacent and you get happy. And it's fine to be happy, but for me, my recommendation is never stop, never settle. You get to manager, now start planting the seeds to figure out how are you going to get to senior manager. Great, got to senior manager. Now I'm planting the seeds for the next journey, your next chapter. In my career, I learned that about 10, 15 years ago. I'm always planting for what is next. For example, my first CLO role, was I ready for it? No, probably not. I'm not ready for any of the roles that I get, but you learn, you figure out how to do it. But I had created this image that existed externally that that's who I was already. And so it was very easy for people to accept that because that was the image that I had created. I put in the work behind it. I had done everything. And so always think about what's that next one or two levels and start to present yourself today as that. So when you get closer there, it just feels like a natural progression.
Yeah. Yeah, that is absolutely powerful. I remember having the that conversation with one of my managers a month after I got promoted. I went to him, I said, "Okay, what's next? Let's start." He was like, "Candace, you've just got this job a month ago." I said, "Yeah, but my next promotion is about 2 years out. We got to start working now." So, yes, absolutely. Okay, let's travel all the way back again. What would you thank yourself for doing? Your younger self, 20-year-old self, teenage self?
For surviving. There was many, many times I didn't want to and I didn't think that I would. And I would say there's at least one or two times a day that I just say to myself, thank you. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for surviving and getting to where you are today because I'm living the life that I had always hoped I could. I had no idea how I would get there. I had no idea what it would look like, but I don't live in fear anymore. I get to give back, and I'm just thankful I survived.
Mm, your story is phenomenal. So thank you for sharing it. So tell people how they can get hold of you, get your book, all the things you want to tell people about.
Keep it easy. LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the best place. I'm very active there. Would love to stay connected, hear about your journeys as well. Our journeys are like our fingerprints. They're all uniquely our own. We share the characteristics of having fingerprints as we do having journeys. try to avoid looking at somebody else, and even after listening to this and thinking, oh, that's what I should have done or could have done. And this, it's your journey. Enjoy your journey, connect with others, get the mentorship, get that individual guidance, coaching, reach out to people if you don't have anybody. On LinkedIn is a great place. That's how you and I connected there. So,
Mhm.
long story short, LinkedIn, and the book is The Trusted Learning Advisor, and that's available anywhere you can buy a book.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I highly recommend it. Everyone should read that book. Thank you so much. It's been awesome getting to know more about you and a whole other side of you that I didn't know about. So it's been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thank you for the therapy session. I feel like I can cancel my therapist for next week because we're good. We got to revisit some fun stories and not
Yes.
so fun stories.
Yeah, absolutely.